In the complex web of human relationships, expectations often form the invisible threads that bind us to others. They shape how we interact, what we hope for, and how we ultimately perceive our connections. However, these expectations, while they may seem harmless or even necessary, are often the very source of our pain and frustration. The unmet expectations in relationships, whether with a romantic partner, a friend, or a family member, are often the silent culprits that drive a wedge between us and those we care about. What if, instead of holding tightly to these unspoken demands, we could find a way to release them and open ourselves up to more authentic, unburdened connections? The root of much relational strife lies in these unvoiced, often unrealistic expectations. We construct them over time, informed by our past experiences, our desires, and sometimes the media or societal norms. We expect our partners to read our minds, friends to show up when we need them without having to ask, and family members to fulfill roles that we've assigned to them. The issue arises when these expectations are not met. Our frustration and disappointment stem not from the other person's actions, but from the gap between our expectations and reality. We build invisible standards and then silently judge those around us for not meeting them. Yet, this cycle of unmet expectations and unspoken resentment creates emotional distance, and over time, these unacknowledged demands erode the very relationships we long to strengthen. The key to breaking this cycle isn't about changing the other person. In fact, the more we try to control or manipulate others to meet our expectations, the more strained the relationship becomes. Instead, the key lies in changing ourselves, in changing how we view others and how we approach relationships. This shift in perspective is where the philosophy of Stoicism offers profound wisdom. The Stoics teach that true strength doesn't lie in controlling external circumstances or other people. Rather, it lies in mastering our own responses, thoughts, and behaviors. When we stop trying to bend others to our will and instead focus on what we can control, our reactions, communication, and expectations, we find that we can approach our relationships with greater peace and emotional resilience. To detach from unrealistic expectations is to liberate ourselves from the constant cycle of disappointment. When we learn to accept others as they are, rather than as we think they should be, we free ourselves from the emotional toll of constant dissatisfaction. This process of detachment doesn't mean abandoning care, love, or effort in our relationships. It means relinquishing the mental scripts we've written for others and making space for them to show up authentically, in all their imperfect beauty. This is not about giving up on relationships, but about embracing them as they truly are, without the pressure of trying to fit them into a preconceived mold. To better understand this transformative concept, let's take a deeper look at the story of Sarah, a woman who discovered the life-changing power of releasing her expectations and how it forever altered her relationship with her father. Sarah had always envisioned a father who was emotionally available, protective, and openly loving. She believed that a father should be someone who expressed his affection freely and provided constant emotional support. She formed this image based on the way fathers were depicted in movies, books, and the experiences of her friends. However, the reality of her relationship with her father, James, was starkly different. James was a quiet, emotionally reserved man who worked long hours to provide for the family. While he loved Sarah, he expressed it in ways that didn't align with her idealized image. He didn't shower her with words of affection, nor did he offer frequent hugs or emotional encouragement. Birthdays came and went with little fanfare, and family dinners were often spent in silence. As Sarah grew older, this emotional distance began to weigh heavily on her. She interpreted his lack of outward affection as indifference. She started to feel that he didn't care for her the way other fathers cared for their children. The more her expectations went unmet, the more frustrated and resentful she became. She asked herself, "Why can't he be the kind of father I need? Why doesn't he care enough to show it?" With each unanswered question, the emotional divide between them widened. The breaking point came on her 30th birthday. Once again, her father forgot the occasion, and Sarah, overwhelmed by years of pent-up frustration, finally exploded. During a family gathering, she confronted him, her voice trembling with anger and hurt. "Why don't you care? Why can't you be the kind of dad who shows up?" Her father, taken aback by the intensity of her outburst, didn't respond. Instead, he withdrew into the silence that had always marked their relationship. That night, as Sarah sat with her emotions, she realized something profound. Her anger, though deeply felt, didn't seem to bring any resolution. In fact, she felt emptier than ever before. Her frustration wasn't just about her father's behavior. It was about the expectations she had placed on him. In her search for clarity, Sarah discovered Stoic philosophy. One line from a book struck her deeply. "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This realization shifted her perspective. She began to question whether the true source of her pain was not her father's behavior, but the expectations she had attached to him. What if she had created an idealized image of the kind of father she wanted him to be, without ever considering who he actually was as a person? Sarah's breakthrough came during a quiet evening of journaling when she wrote, "What am I expecting from my dad, and why?" In that moment, she recognized that her expectations had been shaped by movies, books, and the experiences of others. But her father, James, was not a character from a script. He was a real person with his own history, his own story. She remembered how he had grown up in an environment where emotional expression was rare, and love was shown through action, not words. For James, providing for his family was his way of demonstrating care and love, even though it didn't align with Sarah's image of how love should be expressed. For the first time, Sarah was able to see her father as a person, not as a projection of her desires. She thought about his long hours at work, his sacrifices, and the quiet ways he had always been there for her. He may not have expressed love the way she expected, but in his own way, he was showing it. He fixed her car when it broke down, made sure she had what she needed for school, and sat silently with her during difficult times. She realized that James did care deeply about her, just not in the way she had envisioned. This revelation changed everything. The next time Sarah saw her father, she approached him differently. Instead of expecting a warm hug or an apology, she chose to focus on what she could control, her own actions and mindset. She started small, asking him about his day and listening intently to his answers. Slowly, she began to notice a subtle warmth in his responses. She started expressing gratitude for the things he did, like fixing her car or checking in on her job. These small acts of appreciation gradually began to bridge the emotional gap between them. One day, as they sat together watching a football game, James turned to her and said, "I don't say it enough, but I'm proud of you." It was a small sentence, but for Sarah it carried the weight of years of unspoken love. It wasn't because her father had suddenly changed. It was because she had changed. By letting go of her expectations, she created the space for their relationship to evolve and grow in an authentic way. This shift in perspective didn't just change Sarah's relationship with her father. It transformed how she viewed all her relationships. She began to recognize how often she held others to invisible standards. She realized how many times she had silently expected friends to always be available, her partner to always understand her needs without her saying a word, and colleagues to meet her exacting standards without room for error. She started applying the same philosophy to these relationships. When a friend didn't text her back right away, she reminded herself that their worth wasn't defined by a single missed message. When her partner didn't immediately understand her feelings, she communicated openly rather than allowing resentment to build. With each expectation she released, Sarah felt lighter. Her relationships, once strained by unspoken demands, began to thrive. She was more present, more patient, and more compassionate. Instead of focusing on what others weren't doing, she focused on what they were doing. And in doing so, she unlocked a deeper, more fulfilling connection with everyone around her. The lesson from Sarah's story is clear. Detachment from unrealistic expectations is not about abandoning relationships or settling for less. It's about freeing ourselves from the emotional burden of trying to control others. It's about shifting our focus inward, mastering our thoughts and responses, and giving others the space to show up authentically. By letting go of the mental scripts we've written for others, we allow them to be themselves, flaws and all, and in doing so, we create room for genuine, meaningful connections to flourish. So, take a moment to reflect on your own relationships. What expectations are you holding on to that may be causing frustration or disappointment? Are they serving you, or are they creating unnecessary pain? By learning to detach from unrealistic expectations and focus on what you can control, your thoughts, actions, and communication, you can open the door to deeper understanding, compassion, and growth. Relationships don't thrive because others change to meet our expectations. They thrive when we choose to approach them with clarity, compassion, and wisdom. Letting go of unrealistic expectations isn't about perfection. It's about practice, about making small, intentional shifts in how we interact with those we care about. It's about finding peace within ourselves by accepting others as they are, not as we wish them to be. And as we do this, we don't just strengthen our relationships, we deepen our connection to ourselves and to the world around us. If you liked the video, then subscribe our channel to enjoy more videos like this. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon.